On a warm August evening in 1981, 22-year-old University of Idaho student Kristin David hopped on her bicycle for what should have been a simple ride between Moscow and Lewiston. She never made it. 9 days later, fishermen would stumble upon black plastic bags floating along the Snake River, containing a discovery so horrifying that the small college town would never be the same. More than 40 years later, the murder of Kristin David remains one of Idaho's most disturbing unsolved cases. Tonight, we dive deep into the chilling timeline, the unanswered questions, and the terrifying possibility of a killer who still walks free. Kristin David wasn't just another face on campus. Friends described her as bright, kind-hearted, and ambitious. At 22, she was pursuing a degree in psychology at the University of Idaho, dreaming of a future helping others. She was known for her independence, often seen cycling across town with a friendly wave to classmates and professors alike. Family members recall that Kristin loved the outdoors, long bike rides, and quiet moments near the river. She was a cautious young woman, street-smart but trusting, never one to take unnecessary risks, which makes what happened on that August evening all the more baffling. How could someone so careful, riding in broad daylight on a well-traveled road, simply vanish without a trace? It was Saturday, August 16, 1981. Kristin left Moscow in the early evening, planning to bike the 36-mile stretch to Lewiston. It wasn't unusual for her to make this trip. She was athletic and familiar with the route, but witnesses would later describe seeing her bike along Highway 95 and then, nothing. Hours passed. Night fell. Kristin never arrived. Friends assumed a flat tire or a change of plans, but by Sunday morning, alarm bells were ringing. She wasn't home, she didn't call, and her bike was nowhere to be found. Police initially treated it as a possible runaway case, but Kristin's family insisted something was terribly wrong. For days, search parties combed the highways, fields, and backroads. Not a single clue turned up. No clothing, no bike, no sign of a struggle. Kristin had simply disappeared into the Idaho wilderness. Until the river gave up its dark secret 9 days later. As days turned into weeks, investigators knew they were dealing with more than a random disappearance. The condition of Kristin's remains painted a chilling picture of the perpetrator, someone organized, deliberate, and deeply disturbed. The FBI was brought in to create a behavioral profile. According to reports, they believed the killer was likely a white male in his mid-20s to early 30s, possibly living alone or with a relative, familiar with the back roads of Idaho. The meticulous dismemberment suggested access to tools, time, and privacy. This wasn't a frenzied crime of passion. It was cold, calculated, and terrifyingly precise. But why Kristin? Authorities explored multiple theories: a targeted attack, someone who knew her route, waited for the right moment, and abducted her. A serial predator. Over the years, investigators have linked Kristin's case to other disappearances in the Pacific Northwest, involving young women vanishing along isolated highways. A local with a dark secret. Some believe the killer was from the community, blending in and hiding in plain sight, someone no one would ever suspect. Despite extensive questioning, roadblocks, and hundreds of tips, the investigation ran dry. No one was ever charged. For decades, Kristin's case has remained a grim question mark in Idaho's history. A predator may have walked away free, leaving only fear and silence behind. 40 years have passed since Kristin David's murder, but in Moscow and Lewiston, her name still lingers like a ghost story that never fades. Generations of students have heard the warnings. Don't bike that route alone, not after what happened to Kristin. The case became part of local lore, but without answers, it slowly slipped into the dusty shelves of cold case files. That is, until recently. In 2024, the popular true crime podcast Crime Junkie dedicated an entire episode to Kristin's story, interviewing her surviving family, friends, and retired detectives who worked the original case. The episode reignited national interest, with thousands of listeners sharing potential leads, old rumors, and even suspect names that were never publicly released. This new wave of attention has given the family something they haven't felt in decades: hope. Hope that DNA technology, renewed public pressure, or a guilty conscience could finally crack this case wide open. For now, the question remains, is Kristin David's killer still out there, living free, their secret safe for over 40 years? Or could the power of community, social media, and modern forensics finally bring justice to the young woman who never made it home? Kristin David's story leaves us with one haunting question. What really happened on that lonely Idaho road in August 1981? Some believe she was stalked by a stranger in a passing vehicle, someone who saw an opportunity and acted on it. Others think her abduction was meticulously planned by someone who knew her habits, her route, even her exact timing that day. The brutality of the crime points to something far more sinister. This wasn't just a killing. The dismemberment, the careful disposal in the Snake River, this level of control often suggests a killer who had done this before. Or someone who desperately needed to hide what they'd done. Then there's the serial killer theory. Over the years, multiple women vanished under eerily similar circumstances in the Northwest, many near isolated highways. Could a single predator have hunted young women like Kristin for years, always staying one step ahead of the law? Or was this a lone act of unimaginable violence, committed by someone who's never harmed again or has, without being caught? To this day, there are no definitive answers. Only dark possibilities, whispered theories, and a grieving family still searching for the truth. Kristin David's life was stolen, her future erased, and yet her story refuses to be forgotten. Somewhere out there, someone knows the truth. Maybe it's buried in an old memory, a hidden file, or a guilty conscience waiting to speak up. If you have any information about the murder of Kristin David, contact Idaho authorities. And if you believe cases like this deserve to stay in the spotlight until justice is found, click subscribe, ring the bell, and share this video, because the more people know her name, the closer we might get to finally uncovering the truth behind this haunting cold case.